Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Buzz Bogdan here, your host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for pushing the play button, by the way. And guys, without losing too much precious time here, allow me to cover Philippines export dynamics for 2024. And basically, I will try to show you the top 20 headings that had the largest absolute changes, both positive and negative. While towards the end of the video, I will try to make an attempt at finding out where the Philippines has some comparative advantages with the coefficient of variation as a proxy in measuring this, but more on this in a couple of minutes. So guys, first things first, in terms of absolute positive changes, on the first spot we see heading 1503, so coconut copra, palm kernel or babassu oil, who had $1 billion positive change for 2024. Lenses, prisms, and other optical elements sits on the second spot with a change of some $762 million, while heading 8807, so parts of aircraft and spacecraft, had an absolute positive change of almost $587 million. And most probably parts of this positive outcome can be attributed to Airbus investment in the Philippines. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, copper ores and concentrates, for example. So heading 2603, who had an yearly positive change of almost $564 million. What else do we see? We see electrical resistors, for example, who had a change of some $278 million. New pneumatic tires is also present in this list with a change of $111 million, while towards the end of the list we see orthopedic appliances with a change of almost $90.5 million. Cruise ships, cargo ships, or ferry boats sits on the 19th spot with a positive change of $77 million, while parts and accessories for motorcycles ends this top 20 list with a change of $73.5 million and an overall export value for 2024 around $131 million. So guys, what insights can we squeeze out of this information? Well, looking briefly at the summary chart here, we see a lot of unique chapters, meaning that the Philippines export performers are quite diversified, but two clusters emerge for sure here, at least in terms of overall export values and number of headings, of course. And to be more precise, I'm talking about chapter 84 in premise, so machinery and mechanical appliances with three headings in this top 20 list, and an overall export value for 2024 around $4.9 billion. And then we see two clusters composed of chapters 90 and 85, who each have two headings in this top 20 list, but much lower values when it comes to the overall exports. As for the rest of the chapters, as we can see together here, each has one heading in this top 20 list. Some are commodity related ones, like, I don't know, copper, gold, or petroleum, and coconut copra, which are highly volatile, but still important for the Philippines, especially copper and coconut oil. As for the last 5 years trend, if we look at the compound annual growth rates, well, most of the headings here have positive figures, many of them with double-digit growth, but we see also a couple of negative changes. And if you ask me, the most worrying are the headings concerning automatic data processing machines, so PCs and laptops mostly, with a negative change of 11%, and the other one is heading 8473, so parts and accessories for printers mostly, who had a negative change of 12.45%. Otherwise, looking at these dynamics, nothing worrying, I would say. On the contrary, and my educated guess is that heading 8714, so parts and accessories for motorcycles, will grow even more in the next couple of years. And I wouldn't be surprised really to see Philippines' exports from this heading reach $200 million in the next 3 years. Anyways, guys, with this being said, I will now cover Philippines' top 20 negative changes. And on the first part, we see heading 8542, so electronic integrated circuits, parts thereof, with a negative change of some $3.3 billion as the artificial intelligence hype, let's say, is stabilizing. Then we see copper, but unlike the heading from the previous sheet, this time we're talking about refined copper and copper alloys with some $604 million negative change. While on the third spot, ending the shame podium, we see parts of aircraft who had a contraction of some $415 million, $0 exports, basically, as we had a change of headings in 2024, and heading 8803 was probably replaced with heading 8807. So we don't have per se a huge contraction, but a change instead. What else do we see here? We see semiconductor devices, for example. So heading 8541 with a negative change of some $350 million, so quite big. Then we see solid-state non-volatile storage devices who had a contraction of almost $297 million. Towards the middle of the list, we see, I don't know, structures and parts of structures, so heading 7601, who in 2024 had a negative change of some $128 million. Nickel mats or nickel oxide sinters is next with a contraction of some $109 million, while towards the end of this top 20 list we see radar apparatus with some $62 million negative change. Cigars, cigarillos and the like sits on the 19th spot with some $53.6 million contraction, while printed circuits here, so heading 8534, ends this top 20 list with a contraction of almost $50 million. And again, guys, following the example from the previous sheet, let's see what insights can we extract from this info. And quickly looking at the summary chart, I see that the number of unique chapters each is much smaller, and chapter 85, so electrical machinery and equipment, is showing an impressive cluster, as we have some 8 headings in this top 20 list. Chapter 84, so machinery and mechanical appliances, has 3 headings with an overall export value of some $1 billion, while chapter 74, so copper and articles thereof, has 2 headings with a combined export value of some $1.3 billion, while the rest of the chapters have just 1 heading with overall export figures ranging from, I don't know, $19 million, as we can see for chapter 76, to some $724.7 million, as we can see here for chapter 87. Now, if we look at the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, yes, we see a lot of negative changes, but if we look closely and remove the commodity-related headings, like those involving copper or nickel, my concern will focus on just 1 heading, and that's semiconductor devices, so heading 8541. Otherwise, nothing particularly worrying. So I will now move, guys, to my last sheet, in which, as I've said at the beginning, I will try to show you some of the sectors where the Philippines has a comparative advantage. And for this, I've used the coefficient of variation as a proxy, and the headings this time are sorted according to this indicator from the smallest to the largest. And as we can see here, on the first spot we see electrical transformers, so heading 8504 with a coefficient of variation of 0.014. Cigarette paper is on the second spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.056. while electrical apparatus for switching or protecting electrical circuits ends the podium with a coefficient of variation similar to the previous one, but for the sake of rounding I didn't pull all the decimal places. Then we see, I don't know, fruit juices, for example, with a coefficient of variation of 0.072. Copper foil is also present here and is showing a coefficient of variation of 0.079 and some $100 million worth of exports for 2024. While towards the end of this list we see pasta, for example, heading 1902 with a coefficient of variation of 0.1 and some $35.5 million worth of exports. Machines and apparatus sits on the 19th spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.101, while fruits, nuts and other edible parts of plants prepared or preserved ends this top 20 list with an impressive $429 million worth of exports and a coefficient of variation of 0.102. So guys, is the coefficient of variation showing us some sectors where the Philippines has a comparative advantage? My guess is that it captures pretty well some of the sectors, and remember these are the top 20 headings, and we can easily see that chapter 85 here stands out immediately, both in terms of cumulative exports and the number of headings, while the others, so chapter 20, even though it has just one heading in this top 20 list, it ranks third in terms of individual headings exports for 2024. And you can see it here, but we're talking about pineapples exports, where the Philippines is I think is in the top 3 exports, behind, I don't know, Indonesia and Thailand maybe. So yes, we can say that this indicator gives us a pretty good understanding of a country's comparative advantage when it comes to exports. As for the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, well, we see extremely low variability, mostly positive, so nothing worrying here. But on the other hand, nothing that could indicate some growth poles in terms of exports for the coming years, which could prove problematic on the long run if some export sophistication is not considered. Anyways, guys, I am not a policymaker. I might be wrong, of course, so time will tell how things will unfold for the Philippines. And guys, with this covered as well, my job here for today is done. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit those small vanity buttons below this video. And as always, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.